If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is the Maura Murray series, episode 48, Silent Umass 5. Because there are even more issues at Umass that people do not want to talk about, that people do not want to explore. But we don't know what happened to Maura Murray. It could be the most mysterious disappearance in Massachusetts state history. So we have to delve deeper into some of these avenues and find out what really happened. And how can you do that if you're not asking the right questions? How can you do that if you're shutting down people honestly investigating, people who are honestly interested in the truth? This is your host, Bruce Bigwire. If you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you like the podcast, hit that like button, and feel free to share it across social media platforms. Any questions, comments, theories, rebuttals, debunkings, leave them in the comment section. If you're just leaving random gibberish, it might not be approved. Make sure you present in a logical fashion instead of just random nonsense. You could also check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons get priority for case topic and podcaster requests. And make sure to like and follow our Facebook page for exclusive content, such as this episode. All right. So before we jump into questions not explored in the previous episode, let's examine the matter of the Saturn's insurance. So some people have pointed out that there is no definitive answer on whether or not Maura was taken off the insurance. Obviously, I'm not purporting to be sharing insurance documentation of Fred Murray's exact actions. This is all theorizing because we don't know for sure. Nobody's seen the exact insurance documents. So Fred Murray has mentioned in interviews that he thinks he took Maura off the Saturn insurance, obviously because the Saturn wasn't being driven. According to Fred, it was on its last legs. She wasn't allowed to drive it. She wasn't supposed to drive it. Julie Murray has said the same thing in multiple interviews. Also, in Fred's UMass Police Department statement, in the transcript of that, he mentions he's not sure that he had insurance for Maura at all. When he's relaying the events of the Saturday, when they were supposed to be car shopping, he said Maura woke up around 10:30. She told me about the accident. I asked, where's the car? She told me it wouldn't run. It had to be towed. We're talking about the Toyota now. This is the Hadley accident. I thought about how to get a rental car. How far can it be towed? I went out and looked at the car, went to the office and asked who is open. Where is a Toyota place? Where can I get a car? She made some calls for me to rental places. I went to the room and found a couple places that had free loaners. I wasn't sure if I had insurance for her. Okay, so did he take her completely off his insurance policy? Because if she wasn't driving either to save money, whatever, was she not insured on any vehicles? She's no longer under his insurance policy? This is his statement. Again, he's not even sure. So he's not looking at it. We don't have the documents in front of us. I don't know. All of these narrative steers out there pretending that I'm stating all these things as irrefutable facts. I don't know how many times I have to say this. There are almost no irrefutable facts in this entire case. This is all just theorizing based on who said what when in which statements. So person A says this in an interview. That's what I'm referencing. Do I know that that is true? No, I don't. Fred Murray, in his statement to the University of Massachusetts Police Department, February 22nd, 2004, I wasn't sure if I had insurance for her. So this seems like an umbrella statement, because if they're getting loaners, she's not covered under any insurance policy. I don't know what Fred's doing. So if she just said, oh, I'm just getting a ride to clinicals, I don't really need a car, the Saturn's on his last legs, whatever. If we don't know what kind of conversations Fred and Maura had, so we don't know. If he took her completely off his insurance, then she wouldn't be insured to drive any cars under his policy, or any cars registered to him under his policy. So if that's true, then this creates a situation, obviously, and that's what was being discussed in the previous episode. All right, so we are going to examine the timeline in the days prior from that Saturday to her disappearance on Monday and all of the shadiness around that and the lack of evidence as discussed in the previous podcast. So let's go over the entirety of Fred Murray's supplemental narrative. This is a transcript, University of Massachusetts Police Department police report, entered February 22nd, 2004. Saturday arrived around 12 to 12:30, called her on phone, waited for her to come outside her dorm. We were going to get her a car. That is why I came up that weekend. We started in Hadley looking for cars, $4,000 on my person. We went to a place in Northampton that her boyfriend had good luck with. I'll be referencing that in a future episode on said boyfriend, Bill Roush, and how he got incredibly triggered over any questioning of this car purchase. Because if he was living in Oklahoma with his home in Ohio and buying a vehicle randomly near where his girlfriend went to school, if he wasn't at West Point at the time, and if he was only at West Point for a few weeks, again, bizarre issue. Some people don't think it's strange at all, and I've repeatedly said there's really no reason to believe it has anything to do with Maura Murray's disappearance. It just seems kind of strange, but apparently finding things strange is not allowed by narrative steers. You have to accept on blind faith as gospel truth that everything is always on the up and up. All right. Then we went to Route 10 west of Northampton. Started to get dark. Came back to Quality Inn ? Hung around there for a while. She exercised at the weight room. We went to the ABC, had supper there. She got a call from Kate, who had just returned from track meet. We went to a student parking lot and picked up Kate around 9. I asked Maura to take me back to the Quality Inn. She instead had me pick up Kate, and we went back to ABC to the upstairs. I had 2 beers. Kate had a couple of beers. Maura had 1 drink, believed to be Black Russian. I asked to be brought back to the Quality Inn. They were going back to the dorm. I told them it was too late, but they said it doesn't get started until late. Maura was in bed when I woke up around 10 a.m. Maura woke around 10:30. She told me about the accident. I asked, where's the car? She told me it wouldn't run, it had to be towed. I thought about how to get a rental car. How far can it be towed? I went out and looked at the car. Went to the office and asked who is open. Where's a Toyota place? Where can I get a car? She made some calls for me at rental places. I went to the room and found a couple of places that had free loaners. I wasn't sure if I had insurance for her. I asked what happened. She said I came around a corner and hit some sand and skid. I told her she was going too fast. I asked her if she got a ticket, and she said no. I told her she was lucky she didn't get a ticket for drunk driving. She told me she hadn't had a drink in a while and was okay. We went to North Amherst Motors around 12:30. I intended to bring the car back the next Friday night. Maura was making whimpering sounds while in the car. At the motel, she said, "This is the worst." We went back to the dorm. She was feeling bad because she let me down. When she reached in the back seat to get her stuff, I told her it'll get fixed. She went into the dorm, sort of slumped her way in. I dropped her off at around 1 to 1:30. And those are some heartbreaking visuals. If that doesn't break your heart, I don't know if you have one. That is, that's rough. I went back to Bridgeport Court at Homestead Suites, arrived around 3:30. I called Maura on Sunday around 8:30 to 9 about insurance and getting reports at police department. I was sure she would call because she wouldn't let me down again. Late the next afternoon, I got a call from my daughter Kathleen telling me Maura hit a tree and was missing. When asked, did you go to Liquor 44 with the girls? At first he stated no, then thought about it and said, I am unsure if I did, if it was before or after ABC. I think it was after ABC. I can remember the girls walking around looking for wine and telling them to just pick up something. All right. Now, another interesting point here is certain narrative steerers have alleged that Kate Markopoulos was not even close with Maura, that they were just distant acquaintances and things of that nature, and Maura didn't really have close friends. Well, keep in mind here, this is a year after Maura is no longer even on the track team, and she's still hanging out with Kate Markopoulos. Other people on the track team have even described Kate and Maura being together all the time, and that Kate Markopoulos was even third wheel to Maura's outings with Haas, the assistant track coach that she had a relationship with that previous year, while her and Billy Roush were supposedly on break or whatever, however that gets explained. So it seems clear, even from all these statements, that Kate Markopoulos was quite close with Maura, or at least closer than anyone else. So what they were talking about and all that, who knows, but this is just, it's actually kind of heartbreaking just to read that statement, because obviously Fred Murray would have no idea that these would be the last times he was going to see Maura. So that is the police statement. So some people allege that if this was a frame up and Maura was set up to make it look like she was just DUI crazy and this drunk driver all the time, this narrative would have had, because nobody knew about the Hadley crash in Haverhill. So if this was a staged accident, whoever staged it, if this was continuing the narrative of Maura Murray's just an irresponsible drunk driver, if this was all set up and a DUI narrative was spun, then who could have spun it other than people who knew about the Hadley crash? Who knew that Maura was in Liquors 44 that Saturday night? Who knew that she crashed her father's car? So did Maura Murray ever make it out of Massachusetts? So Kate Markopoulos does seem to be instrumental here. Now, whether she's the good guy or the bad guy, that's information we don't have, because if they were all trying to help Maura, whatever. But if they weren't, again, the people who have who's the last known person to have seen Maura Murray confirmed? Because obviously her own father would be able to identify her. Kate Markopoulos, a friend or close friend, would be able to identify her. If there was video surveillance footage of all these movements, especially outside of Umass. So Butch Atwood, someone who's allegedly never seen her before, said that she looked different than in the pictures. And then the ever-changing narrative of whether she was drunk, not drunk, whether that was all misreported, who knows. People are thinking that I am alleging it is gospel truth that Butch Atwood said that definitely was not her. I mean, this guy at night looking over a bus, there's so many different narratives on how he even stumbled upon the driver of the Saturn. So, and then you'd have to ignore the reports of the man smoking a cigarette and all these other things. So that's not someone spotting someone who possibly might have looked like a young woman with her hair down at night in non-ideal conditions. That's not a confirmed sighting by any stretch of the imagination. Even the most illogical narrative steerers, for them to call that a definitive confirmed sighting, that's as silly as you can get. Maybe he did see Maura. If she was there, she was the driver, and that's who Butch Atwood saw. That's who he saw. But that's not confirmed. If you're not taking on blind faith as gospel truth, all these things, and you're being actually scientific and logical, that's not confirmed. So the last confirmed sighting, you'd need some kind of corroboration from someone who definitely knew her and exactly what she looked like her father or a friend, and ideally also supported by security cam footage. If you haven't checked out the previous episode, I talked about how UMass did have quite a few security cameras, even back in 2004, actually starting in the late 90s is when they started installing security cameras. So you would think there'd be some footage existing to corroborate all of these movements. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Thursday even, if you're talking about the emotional breakdown. So Maura and the Saturn, for some reason, the narrative steerers don't want those two to be separated. So again, the ATM footage, of which a very small number of stills were released from the existing footage, Does it show that the Saturn is not there, that she's not in the Saturn, she's with someone else and someone else's car? And so if she was never with the Saturn on Saturday or Sunday or Monday, then someone else could have taken the Saturn up somewhere else. Or if it was her at the beginning of the trip, that doesn't mean she ever made it to Haverhill. And then, of course, the other issue, we talked about this in other episodes, was her cell phone. She left her cell phone in Sarah Alfieri's dorm room the night of that alleged party. So what is going on at the party? Did something happen? Did she get spooked? Was something said? Or was she that just emotionally out of it that she left her phone? I mean, we don't know. Obviously, we do not know the answers to any of these questions. These are very critical questions. And supposedly, people guess that Sarah Alfieri gave her her phone back when she was working at the art gallery on Sunday. And Sarah Alfieri has said that Maura didn't even mention the previous Hadley accident to her at work. So that's interesting, if true. So here's another interesting article. This is from the Patriot Ledger, March 9th, 2004. Mysterious miss. Closest friends say missing UMass student kept deepest feelings to herself. By Joe McGee. Kate Markopoulos considers herself one of Maura Murray's closest friends. Okay, once again, to the narrative steerers who keep trying to maintain the narrative that Kate Markopoulos was just some kind of distant acquaintance or something. This, from many, many sources we have here, that Kate Markopoulos was, by all accounts, her best friend. That doesn't mean they were best friends like other best friends are that tell each other everything. Obviously, we don't know that, and this article actually sheds a little bit of light on that if Kate Markopoulos' words are to be believed. Kate Markopoulos considers herself one of Maura Murray's closest friends and yet knows she had a mysterious side. I really didn't know everything about her, so now I don't find it so hard to believe Murray's disappearance from the University of Massachusetts, she said. Some people would find that an odd statement as well. Oh, this person didn't reveal every single secret to them ever. So I guess it's not that strange that they disappeared. That's kind of weird. Almost mind-shocking. Not quite mind-shocking, but almost mind-shocking. She is struggling these days to figure out why Murray packed up her dormitory room a month ago today and took off for New Hampshire. Murray, a Hanson native, crashed on Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire that Monday night and hasn't been seen or heard from since. Theories include that she is hiding out, was kidnapped, or wandered away disoriented and perished in the rugged, snowy woods. But what made her leave campus in the first place? She took care of stuff on her own. That's Maura, said Markopoulos, a senior history major from upstate New York who ran track with Murray for a year. Murray, an excellent student and athlete at Whitman Hanson Regional High School, enjoyed challenges like hiking in the White Mountains. When she scored 1420 of a possible 1600 on her SATs, everyone knew she was headed for big things. After graduating in 2000, she was accepted into the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where her older sister was a cadet. She had excellent marks and was a great runner. Her boyfriend, Army Lieutenant Bill Roush, said. Roush met Maura through Julie Murray, his classmate at West Point. She was a top student in great shape and, of course, extremely beautiful, Roush said. Although, is that really true? Or was Bill Roush her mentor as a result of her honor code violations at West Point? All right, continuing on here. For Murray, life appeared good at West Point. Things changed at West Point. Then, one day, things changed. Military life wasn't for Maura after all. Roush said West Point does that to people. His class started with 1,200 and finished with 900. That's the great thing about West Point. It forces you to grow up quick and figure out exactly what you want, he said. To Murray's father, Fred Murray of Weymouth, it was a surprise but not a total shock that she wanted to pursue a nursing degree at Umass. He graduated from that school, and Maura's mother, Lori, is a nurse. The decision to leave West Point after her freshman year wasn't a rash one, Roush said. The couple researched the transfer and it was a smooth transition. The couple figured that making new friends at UMass would be hard for Murray. After all, she would be entering her sophomore year and social cliques were already set. One day, UMass track coach Julie Lafreniere introduced Murray to her teammates. Markopoulos remembered it as the typical awkward group introduction. At first, she noticed Murray was quiet and at times elusive. Planning marriage, starting career, their birthdays are 11 days apart. Their friendship blossomed last year when they turned 21. Then a new Murray came out, someone who could be somewhat flirtatious when she drank. All along, however, she was focused on settling down with Roush and starting a new career, said Markopoulos. She held 2 jobs so she could fly to Oklahoma, where Roush is stationed at Fort Sill. So she's flying. Why does Bill Roush need that new vehicle? If he's flying out and she's flying there and she's driving him to the airport in August, I mean, what period of time would he have needed the car? Just a couple weeks? All right, back to the article. She planned to move there after graduation to Fort Sill. When Roush visited Amherst during vacations, they'd do what many couples do on the weekends, hiking in the mountains, shopping for antiques, and visiting bookstores in western Massachusetts. Basically, any time together was time well spent, Roush said. So would he be spending that time driving to Ohio or Oklahoma in a vehicle if he'd rather spend it with Maura and then fly? That's a question for Maxwell Powers. Their life together was beginning to take shape. We really considered ourselves engaged. We actually were looking for rings over Christmas break, Roush said. All right, that's the first mention I've seen of that. I think Roush had said, and Sharon Roush repeated, that they were engaged to be engaged. So if this is true, they were actually shopping for rings over Christmas break. Would their relationship have really been that tumultuous? Some people allege that she was trying to get away from Bill Roush if he was abusive at that time, or if she just felt helpless and just went along to look for rings. Again, these are all things we do not know and we can only speculate. On the afternoon of February 9th, Murray acted like she wanted to drop everything she worked hard for in life. She packed up her belongings in a room on her 4th floor of the John F. Kennedy Residence Hall, including wall decorations. Okay, once again, Julie Murray has said the room did not look packed up. It was simply not fully unpacked from the previous break when Maura returned, and she said that Maura was also the type of person that was super, super fully organized in everything except their own space. So, anyway, take that as you will, but it has been repeated that her room was packed up. Again, that is not a definitive. She left messages for professors and bosses lying about a death in the family. Okay, so this article says death, other articles say family emergency. Okay. Then she loaded her Saturn sedan, a car that friends said she hadn't started in weeks. So again, this really does seem like that January tow or whatever happened in January where the Saturn was returned back to the UMass parking lot. It hadn't been started since, and that would make sense why Fred would have taken her off the insurance, because if the car was never going to be driven for anyway, and if Maura assured him, oh, I'm just getting rides to clinicals anyway, then she wouldn't need to be on the insurance. Okay. Friend said she hadn't started in weeks and took off. Her dorm mates didn't even notice she was gone. I didn't even know she lived here, said Kelly Martinson, a freshman from Hull who lived 5 doors down from Murray. All right, so that's another interesting question, because if nobody saw her coming and going, does that mean that Maura was also either out at all hours or staying at other places? So once again, the CI possibility comes to mind, because if she is doing other things, people didn't really see her coming and going. Again, the security camera footage would clear up a lot of things from the days or even weeks leading up to the disappearance. Can't figure out what went wrong. Even after 4 weeks, emails continued to go back and forth between friends from Hanson and friends at UMass, trying to figure out what went wrong. So that's interesting, because this is also the first time I've seen specifically mentioning her high school friends, which by all accounts, their response was a lot different than Kate Markopoulos, Sarah Alfieri response. However, if they were constantly in communication with each other, that would be interesting to see what was initially said in the days and weeks following the disappearance before all this time and all these narratives are spun. I'm not sure. Maybe law enforcement has those, what they say, we don't know. Nobody has been able to offer frustrated investigators much about their friend's background. Katie Jones, Murray's childhood friend and a student at Western New England College in Springfield, said although they've lived a few miles apart, they never visited each other at school. She was a very secretive person, Jones said. She never even told us about transferring to Umass until after it happened. Sometimes we think there might be more to that story than we know, she said. Interesting statement from one of her closest friends. Intuitive question there. Sophomore Sarah Alfieri is just as puzzled. She and Murray met while working at art galleries on campus, drawn to each other because of their sarcastic attitudes and love of things ironic. Kept biggest problems to herself. She was so funny. She loved the website The Onion. Her favorite movie is Bottle Rocket, Alfieri said. Despite being so close, Murray never talked about her friends at home, a group of 7 girls at Whitman Hanson who Jones said were inseparable. Murray kept even her biggest problems to herself. She didn't say a word to Alfieri about getting into an accident in her father's car the day before she left Amherst. The accident happened only an hour after they were hanging out in Alfieri's dorm room. Alfieri said Markopoulos, Murray, and a few friends were... and a few friends. Who were those friends? Still unnamed. Were drinking into the late night hours of February 8th. Fred Murray was staying in a hotel on Route 9 that weekend. He was in town to help his daughter find a new car. Father and daughter ate dinner at the Amherst Brewing Company, the ABC that Fred referenced in the police statement, a popular watering hole that night. Then Markopoulos showed up for a drink. So did they pick her up at the dorm or show up? I don't know. Conflicting statements all over the place. After about an hour they left, the girls dropped Fred Murray at his hotel and headed to Alfieri's dorm. Everyone's left wondering. At about 1 a.m., Alfieri said she was passed out from drinking. And it's also interesting, do people usually remember exactly when they pass out from drinking, when they get blackout drunk, or is she relying on the words of either Kate or someone else to tell her when she passed out and she took that on blind faith as gospel truth, that was the hour that she passed out? Again, we don't know. Markopoulos was still up with Murray, and they were talking about going home at 2:30 a.m., but Murray wanted to go to her father's hotel, according to Markopoulos. I told her to just go back to her room and meet him in the morning, but she wouldn't listen. Those are some interesting choice words. Was Kate Markopoulos also trying to get her to do something else? I floated a theory. Again, Kate Markopoulos might have been at a track meet, so on Thursday. We don't know when she left for the track meet or when she returned. But again, just a theory. If Kate Markopoulos was the one who hit Patrice Vassie in Maura's Saturn, or someone connected to Kate Markopoulos hit Patrice Vassie in Maura's Saturn, what were they trying to get Maura to do? How were they trying to cover up the whole situation? Or does this have to do with some kind of drug running at Domino's and possible CI situation? I don't know, but the words jump out at me, but she wouldn't listen. I don't know. About an hour later, Murray cracked up her father's Toyota Corolla on Route 9. Alfieri found out the next week from news reports about her friend's disappearance. I thought that was so weird. I talked to her that day and she didn't even say anything, said Alfieri. Now everybody is wondering about what they don't know about Maura Murray. If she can't figure it out after 3 years of friendship, Markopoulos said nobody might ever know. Also, an interesting and some might say ominous statement. Nobody might ever know. If Markopoulos is one of the responsible parties, is that wishful thinking on her part? It seems very, very strange, again, the actions of her UMass so-called friends. Or, they were all just that devastated that they never bothered to go up and look for her. We don't know. Again, very strange questions. So, other online astute researchers also have questions about this whole narrative at UMass. So, again, we have to keep in mind, is it a possibility that the Saturn had no insurance? Or Maura didn't have insurance on the Saturn, or any combination of that. So what would the liability be? So Fred Murray would be liable since the vehicle was registered in his name, regardless of who was driving, unless he reported the car stolen, right? So here's another issue. Some people find it suspicious that Fred Murray just suddenly decides to go to Umass after a big snowstorm to look for a used car exactly 1 week after classes started. So some people find it suspicious that this issue could have been taken care of during the large winter break. Because if the car hadn't moved since January, since whenever, mid-January, when it had to be towed or driven, or whoever, if Fred drove it, or if it was towed back to the UMass parking lot, depending on which account you're looking at, and it hadn't been moved since. Now, it seems to be corroborated by several friends said that the Saturn had not been driven since, so it's just sitting there. At which point are they going to get a new vehicle, especially if Maura's just getting rides to clinicals, and that's the way it's been for a while? Like, why suddenly the need to get a new vehicle? Unless there was some kind of situation like the Patrick Fassi hit and run. It just seems like the elephant in the room that just won't go away. Now, we've discussed the inconclusive paint chips, because those chips could be from anything. It could be from a trash can, from the road. It doesn't exclude the Saturn from being involved in the accident in any way, because you don't know how they got there. I mean, none of it's conclusive in any way. So some people believe it is for some reason, I don't know why, but upon logical scrutiny, the Saturn cannot be ruled out from the Patrick Fassi hit and run, regardless of whether it was Maura or someone else who was driving the Saturn. Now, until we can put that issue to bed definitively and conclusively in a non-faith-based fashion, we have to keep it on the table, because we just don't know. Does it explain Fred's actions here to just suddenly go to campus right after a big snowstorm? So this is a write-up from a longtime researcher finding the things odd with this whole story. These are people capable of making plans for the future. She got into West Point. They would have been able to think ahead and set aside a day or two during the winter break to shop for a car. All right, I don't know. I don't have answers for that. Okay, 2, Fred withdrawing from ATMs like a crazed robber on Saturday morning. If he knew a car purchase was coming up, why not just go to a bank on Thursday or Friday and write himself a check? No, it doesn't have to be at his own bank. Okay, 3, the $4,000 wasn't enough. Why not go to an ATM on Sunday and complete the purchase? So what if his car was wrecked? If Maura had a car, he could drive the Saturn home. Or if he really didn't want to complete the purchase, then rent a car to go home as he did. Why was it better to leave Maura with a clunker for another week and then make another trip to Amherst the following weekend, all in the hopes of getting some used car that someone else could have purchased before then? Why didn't they leave a deposit on the car they wanted? Why not just make another withdrawal on Sunday or put the balance on a credit card? This makes no sense. I gotta admit, it is a little bit strange, unless Fred Murray makes routine trips up to UMass every weekend, every other weekend to see Maura. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what their schedule was. So if that's the case, then there wouldn't be the urgency might not be there. But I don't know. If he doesn't get up there frequently, is he going to do 2 back-to-backs right after a big snowstorm? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. If Fred Murray's the type of person that doesn't really care about snowstorms and doesn't really plan around them. I mean, there are some people like that. They don't let the weather get in the way. So if he's that type of person, then okay, not as suspicious. But I don't know. Nothing wrong with the questions, though. Okay. Why hasn't anyone named the dealership? They went to purchase a car from somewhere in Northampton where Bill Roush, quote, had luck in the past. As Mindshock pointed out so well, why would Bill Roush buy a used car in Northampton? He lived in Oklahoma at the time. And if he bought a Saab from a Saab dealership, why would Fred and Maura go to a Saab dealership to buy a used car with only $4,000? Seriously. 5, why didn't trading in the Saturn enter into the equation at all? Even a total piece of junk would have gotten them $500 plus, and that car was good enough to be driven 3 hours up the mountains. There were parts on that car that it could have been used. 6, there were no phone calls before or after the shopping day to any dealers in Northampton. Only a call to Reliable Auto, which was in downtown Amherst, which is also a salvage place and a repair shop, I believe. And Alden Olson actually did a write-up on all of these mysterious issues with these auto shops, and including landlords to Patrick Vassy and all of this bizarre stuff, which also happened to include some apartment where Helena Murray tried to rent an apartment years after. And was this a location for off-campus parties? I am going to return to that building in a moment, but let's finish up this write-up here. What did Sarah Alfieri mean when she said she didn't want to get anybody into trouble? So I agree, it sounds all more like a plan and a meeting to find a way to ditch the Saturn, maybe trade it in, but without a bill of sale, no records. Someone capable of stripping down the car or sending it to a chop shop. It seems like maybe Kate could have been the driver. Okay, things that don't fit. Why would Fred take Kate and Maura to a liquor store Saturday night and then leave them with his car? If there was a situation that has to be dealt with, it doesn't seem like this would be the best way. Like, sure, go ahead and party unless it wasn't Maura's fault, but they knew they had to cover for someone because of liability. 2, Kate would have had to know this was going on. Why would she stay silent for all these years, especially after law enforcement said they don't believe the Saturn was involved, that it didn't have the right paint chips, or was this a ruse by the police? And that's an interesting point, too, because would the police say something like that in the hopes of getting people to let their guard down and find more information? I mean, obviously, anybody studying police procedure would have seen this in many cases. Okay. So, and again, people also point out that it seems like Maura Murray made Fred pick up Kate Markopoulos from the statement. I asked Maura to take me back to the Quality Inn. She instead had me pick up Kate, and we went back to the ABC upstairs. So what were Maura and Fred discussing? Then they left, then they pick up Kate, and they go back to the same place to discuss some more? Is that the deal? Or do people who drink frequently, is that what they do? I don't think I've ever personally went to an establishment to drink, left, and then went back to the same said establishment. I don't remember. Is that a commonplace thing to do? I don't know. So other people also point out that the parking lot, lot 12, if that's the lot that it was in, is about a 20-minute walk from Kennedy Hall. So again, in the middle of winter, during snowstorms with not great cleared roads, that 20-minute walk could be even longer just to use a vehicle, depending on where in the parking lot that was more the type of person to let someone else use the Saturn, especially if it was for just short little trips around campus. Because even though it doesn't run well, I mean, if you get stuck a couple blocks, that's not the end of the world, unlike going up to a different state. So was someone else using the Saturn, perhaps Kate's or one of Kate's friends, and they're the ones that hit Patrick Vassy, or there's some other situation that's nothing to do with Patrick Vassy, some kind of possible either CI situation, Domino's drug situation, who knows, but the Saturn was somehow involved and they wanted to get rid of it. So, and again, going back to the whole sticker situation with Alden Olson, so when he asked Skinner if it was possible to park in different lots or how that's enforced and all these things, Skinner flipped out on him, and then he got all these orders and everything went ballistic when Alden Olson asked that innocent question. Other people continue to point out that Maura and Kate being so close after Maura was long not on the track team is an issue. And then also Kate Markopoulos, of course, Aaron Larkin's big sister. So how much was Aaron Larkin involved with Maura and Kate? We don't know. So, and again, referencing Sarah Alfieri, the connection with Kate Markopoulos might be tenuous, because did Sarah and Kate, it seemed like Sarah and Kate were not great friends by any accounts. So Sarah was Maura's friend from the art gallery, different circle of people from all available information. And again, not my deductions, but other great and astute online sleuths have also pointed out when Karen Mayotte walked Maura back to her dorm room, Maura said she had a roommate. Now, was Maura lying? Because if someone was staying with her, even though they weren't an officially registered roommate at the dorm, if it was just someone else staying with her and she just used that term loosely, I mean, you're rooming with someone's your roommate in a general term, not an officially registered term with the college. So whoever was there would know her daily routine, would have access to her computer, could have staged the room, would have known a certain amount about her. And then, as Julie Murray pointed out in a recent podcast interview, apparently there was a tutoring appointment that Maura missed. So even a roommate staying with her, they wouldn't necessarily have every single little detail. So could they cover every single base? They might not be able to. A lot of people assume Maura's lying about everything, but what if she's telling the truth about everything? Again, black and white fallacies, or truth about some things, not the truth about other things. If the roommate is real, how does that change everything? Is this the same person that called the security desk line at 12:40 a.m., the call that's been swept under the rug and attributed to her sister Kathleen and her alcohol situation? If this was a different call as originally reported, again, if you haven't checked out the original Silent Umass episodes, check those out, 1, 2, 3. And we go over that call to the desk line, not Maura's cell phone. And UMass police traced that call, but they said the person had moved on. Who is this individual? When you start identifying, is it possible, because the FBI did investigate early on, do they know who it is? Is it the same person who's this roommate? Is it the same person possibly who's working at Domino's that Maura's calling after hours? Is this all the same person? And is this individual on security footage? The security footage at UMass, which has never been released regarding Maura. So this case probably could be solved. Could it be solved simply by just looking at all of the security footage at UMass? And we might as well throw in Bruce McKay's dash cam footage, because Bruce McKay did have a dash cam. So the other officers might not have, although it's unknown whether Monahan did. But yeah, releasing all that footage, that could tell people some information. But back to the roommate that Maura may or may not have had, was someone else just staying at Maura's dorm most of the time? And that's why people didn't even know she lived there? And if that's true, then where was Maura staying usually? Again, all unanswered questions. If she's really being this secretive, what else is going on? We don't know. So the other thing that's a bit strange is that the UMass PD, so there were emails that Maura, a legal adult, stated that she'd be gone for a week. So is her privacy being violated when UMPD is going through her dorm room Tuesday? 2 UMPD officers speak with her nursing class on Friday about her being missing, but she informed everybody she'd be gone for a whole week. So even though if the Saturn's just a DUI walkaway, then again, I mean, yes, she could be an endangered adult. We don't know any of this information. But if she's just kicking back at a hotel, I mean, that's the thing. At the time, nobody knew anything, or did they? Because if she sent out this email, she's not due back. Now, keep in mind, Fred Murray did tell Julie, who's about to be deployed, not even to get emergency leave until the situation was kind of figured out. And yet Billy Roush already has emergency leave, and he's getting West Point professors to drive in the middle of winter out to Haverhill to start interviewing neighbors. Is this all? Not to mention, Bill Roush also has the phone numbers of Kate Markopoulos, and her dorm. So again, to the narrative steerers who are trying to say that she wasn't close with Kate, I mean, her boyfriend has Kate's cell and dorm numbers. I mean, it doesn't seem that he has Sarah Alfieri's dorm and cell numbers, unless I'm mistaken there. I don't know. I don't think he did. I don't think that's on the phone bills. So that's interesting, is it not? So here's something else that's not really talked about. Technically, Maura Murray's a campus security officer paid by the UMass Police Department. So she's part of the UMass Police Department. So again, let's compare to other missing persons cases. So her coworkers, cadets, officers, other security people, like Aaron Larkin, or the chief of police even at UMass, no one's making statements. No one's saying, we miss Maura, please, if you have any leads. Like, nobody's agreeing to interviews. There's nothing. Like, what did the FBI do in that initial trip down to you? Did they just shut everybody up for some reason? Is there a gag order from a higher agency? And again, that's why some people think Maura actually went into some kind of protective police custody for something, because if she did, how would it be handled if she had gone into some kind of protective custody? Or a more dark scenario, if she was killed by an undercover officer by accident or something like that, undercover FBI agent, they wouldn't necessarily want any of this publicity. Who knows? But was there an FBI gag order? Because in other missing persons cases, you have bosses, coworkers, all these people, not every single one. I mean, if she has like 20 coworkers, I mean, yeah, I'm sure some of them might not be comfortable being on camera. Some of them might be on vacation, whatever, but not a single one ever. Any documentaries, any news reports. I mean, were there even any news reporters with cameras on campus interviewing students about Maura Murray? I mean, there's statements in these news articles to reporters, very few, but I mean, they're here and there, but nothing with local news media. Why is this case not covered? It's 2004 now. All these other cases are just covered so much more in depth with so much more information and statements being made by coworkers, friends, everything, but not in this case. Not in this case. So someone else also pointed out when they went to campus with Fred's Corolla, or they went after they dropped Fred off and they went back to campus. What parking spot did they park in? It would have to be, was it a visitor lot? Because Fred's Corolla does not have a UMass parking sticker. Or did they just randomly park in the Saturn spot if the Saturn was not there? And from what was stated, it looks like they only released 6 out of 22 ATM stills. So roughly a quarter of the stills available. The majority they did not release. So the vast majority of stills they did not release. Why not? And again, where's the Liquors 44 footage? Very, very bizarre case. The Maura Murray disappearance, unlike any other. And then another reason for this whole podcast was, of course, how the Oxygen show was handled. How much of the Oxygen investigation was at UMass? Did they interview any former track team members, coaches, West Point people? Everything was focused at Haverhill for the majority. And the other thing doesn't really make any sense. So Umass, again, very violent campus. Is it really out of the realm of possibility that Maura was harmed at UMass? Even not by any, like, who knows what she was involved with? Friend of a friend who was involved in drugs, dominoes, who knows? And yet, there was no real investigation at UMass. Very, very strange. So UMPD, 1 year before Maura's disappearance at Kennedy, that was the largest drug bust in their history. So, yes. All right, let's go to one final potential mind shock here regarding Billy Rausch, and again, Bob McDonald, his mentor professor from West Point, who dropped everything with his wife for just a random DUI walkaway. All right, how does UMass fit into everything? We have to always go back to this question. So, and online researchers have put this in quite amusing fashions. I mean, concerned boyfriends don't get immediate emergency leave, ask their parents to drive 12 hours, and some professor friend and his wife to drive 5 or 6 hours right after hearing their girlfriend's car broke down and the cops can't find her. Oh, man. It's standard DUI walkaway. I mean, for all DUI walkaways, this is probably what happens, right? Narrative seers and coincidence theorists, let's get a poll going. How often, when there's a DUI walkaway and a person can't be found, I mean, wasn't that the original police excuse that they usually, crash for a night, go to a hotel or a friend's house for a day or something to sober up, and then they come back to the vehicle to avoid a DUI or whatever? Because would that be the thought of a boyfriend? That, oh, well, of course she didn't want to get DUI, so she got out of there for a little bit, not to make 80 phone calls and make a beeline while getting your parents to drive a decent way across the country in the middle of winter, and your West Point professor, mentor, and his wife to just drop everything, take leave just for a DUI walkaway. It's just amazing how people think that that's just so standard in just a DUI walkaway. It's bizarre. Bizarre. Okay. Whereas Fred's response seems a lot more logical. He's telling Julie Murray, so his daughter and Julie's sister don't get emergency leave yet. We have to figure out what the situation is. That seems to be a logical response. So, again, people analyzing Bill Rausch's behavior, his immediate thought should have been more like, excellent, at least she avoided a DUI. Now let me make some phone calls and track her down, maybe see what her dad finds when he gets there. What he did is the sign of someone absolutely freaking out for some reason or faking the concern. Major overreaction. It's as close as we can get to anyone fake hyperventilating in this case. All right. Here's another thing, though, from JR's blog when he's talking about Bob McDonald. We went up to Umass on my last night up there to meet with campus police and to get me a car rental so I could drive myself home. So this is from James Renner's blog, with McDonald supplying Bill Rausch's alibi. So if they drove to New Hampshire, I guess his wife took the car back home, and Bill Rausch and Bob McDonald went to UMass again before they went back home. And just interesting from all these various statements, the McDonalds said they arrived on Friday the 13th, and Christine had to get back for teaching on Tuesday the 17th. She had Monday off because of President's Day. That was the February 16th in 2004. Whereas Bob McDonald must have taken the entire week off. Okay. Other sources stated they were in Haverhill on Wednesday, so... yeah. Unknown? So, okay, this is Daily Collegian, January 26, 2005. Maura's mother, Maura Murray, told the Daily Collegian in August that the relationship between her daughter and Rausch was a very, very good relationship. Rausch's mother, Sharon Rausch, reiterated that statement in a recent interview. She said there was a point where the couple's relationship was rocky in the spring of 2002, but they had resolved their problems by summer and had a good relationship since then. Her son arrived at Maura's dorm room with police just 2 days after she went missing. So Bill Rausch on Wednesday went straight to Maura's dorm before going to Haverhill, New Hampshire, or even meeting up with his parents in Haverhill, New Hampshire. So that's interesting. What did Billy Rausch know? What did Kate Markopoulos tell Billy Rausch? Because does Billy know that she's not in Haverhill? Or is there certain evidence he needs in her dorm room? Because he's not going up to Haverhill. So not only does he go to UMass first, but he also goes to UMass last. So he goes to UMass first and last, as if to make sure he didn't miss anything. Because he goes with Bob McDonald before he leaves. So other people point out that Bill Rausch had not yet received that first cellular phone bill. So he would not have known Kate's cell or dorm numbers unless he was given those numbers, because he couldn't have checked the bill because the bill didn't arrive yet, because she got that number in December. Just a lot of questions in this case. All right, and the final point I wanted to go over is the Phillips Street address. So Alden Olson mentioned this theory, and there might have been a frat house near the Phillips Street address. So if there were a lot of off-campus parties there, which again, numerous sources have said that the party was not at Sarah Alfieri's dorm room, but an off-campus party. So again, both could be true, because if they started the party at a dorm room, I mean, parties can move throughout the night. I mean, this is college. But was there a fraternity house near the Phillips Street address? It seems like there was. And would that involve certain lacrosse players, which other PIs in the case have said that they were looking at lacrosse suspects, who might have even originally saw Maura when she was on the track team the year prior? And the whole stalker angle has been looked at by certain people. Again, not enough evidence. But all of these bizarre connections, coincidences, anomalies, any honest investigator would logically look at everything. So, as always, more questions than answers in the Maura Murray case. Hope you enjoyed another edition of Mindshock True Crime in the Maura Murray series. Plenty more to go over. in this ongoing series, and we will continue to do so. If you like the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. If you like the podcast, hit that like button and share the podcast across social media platforms. You can check us out on Twitter, Reddit, and Patreon, as well as like and follow our Facebook page for exclusive content. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.